What's up? So today we are doing something a little bit different. I'm talking to Mr. Joey Love of what is, in my opinion, one of the most like interesting and just compelling new bands of the LA area. They're called SEIZURE, and you should definitely check them out. How's it going, Joey?
Hi, Devin. Thanks so much for the kind words. I'm doing
Absolutely.
well. And thank
Yeah,
you again
dude.
for having me.
Of course. Yeah, dude, your new album is so fucking sick. It's like ridiculous. Um,
Thank you.
so I guess like tell me a little bit about the songwriting process. Like how does that go? Well, no, sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Just describe your guys' sound for people who might not be familiar with what you guys are doing. Just probably a lot of people.
Sure. Well, I would describe our sound as a mixture of thrash metal, power metal, and classical music. I think it's as simple
More or
as
less
that.
what ANUBIS is doing, maybe without the emphasis on the classical music part.
Well, I could clarify even more a little bit. Our
Sure,
classical influences tend to be more romantic era, so like the 19th
sure.
century. So I hope that is a good description.
Yeah, yeah, something
I've
like
tried
that.
to come up with a good simple way to describe our music, and I think that's about as refined as I can get it at this moment.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know, like I kind of describe it as a combination of like Ex Mortis with like Megadeth a little bit. Um
Yeah,
your vocals kind of remind me of Dave Mustaine a little bit. Um
thanks. Yeah.
and then God, the first time I saw you guys, you covered what was it Solfeghetto by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach? It was some classical piece. I don't remember which one it was.
Goodness gracious. Uh,
Goodness
I've
gracious.
I've thrown a lot of them out there. I think if it was Baroque, then it would have been the Toccata and Fugue in D minor by his
That might have
dad.
been it. Yeah,
But
classic.
I do remember at that show, I played the Chopin Nocturne, Opus 9, number two, or at least part of it. I remember at that show
That might have
because
been it.
your guitarist Elysius was there, and him and I have had conversations about classical music. So I thought, oh, this would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's big into classical and all that shit. Um, as most metal musicians should be, because it's a really, I don't know. I've always really loved classical influence in metal. Just adds so much dimension to it. Um, so yeah, so that is
It's
actually
certainly the highest form of music, along with
yes,
jazz. Those two genres are kind of the kings of interesting sounds, I would say.
yes. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, that's a pretty good seg into what I'm sort of the most interested in, which is like, what is your songwriting process like? Like, how does tell us about how it something goes from an idea to a song that exists.
So my process, I'm a very rigid person. I begin composing between 10 and 11 in the morning, and I do it for between an hour and 2 hours every single day.
That is very
Um,
precise.
yeah, and sometimes that falters, but I try my best to stick with that.
Sure.
And yeah, I in regards to ideas, well, I'll tell you how Forbidden Tales was composed. Um, and I'll tell you that specifically because every time I write an album or an EP, something's always different.
Mhm.
And that's not to sound pretentious, but just I'm at a different place in my life.
Sure.
And despite my insistence on sticking to my rigid schedule, there's always something different about the process. But I'll tell you, Forbidden Tales, the entire album was written. I say it was written a couple times. I really rewrote and rewrote and rewrote and rewrote everything on that album until I was 100% sure I liked it. Uh, but the actual process was I wrote this first song, Banish into Fable, and then I would write the rest of the album. And then from the rest of the album, I'd pick one song that I like, scrap everything else, and then write the rest of the album again. Pick one song I like, scrap everything else. And that was pretty much
That's
how
really cool.
I did it. And for that album, that was what it demanded. And I got to say, it was, I don't know if fun is the right word. Fun kind of implies that there's some pleasure the uh besides the pleasure that's already there in doing music. But I would certainly say that there was just something special about it.
Okay.
For Forbidden Tales, I don't think Forbidden Tales is going to be our greatest album ever. We still have a long road ahead of us, all of us doing this LA scene. that are
Hopefully,
aspiring for more.
yeah, I would like to think that no artist peaks within a year of starting up.
Right. But that being said, there was just something about Forbidden Tales that, for me personally, speaking subjectively, because I can't be the judge of my own music, um, there was just something about it that is just special to me. And even listening to it now, it's weird because it's whenever you listen to your own music, it can be kind of weird. But there's just something about it that I feel in it. So that was the writing process for it, and I'm sure we'll go in other directions and new directions. But there was just something weird about it that I can't describe. And I've been thinking
Okay.
about this a lot for the past couple months. Not to sound pretentious, but it's just subjectively something there that I don't know what kind of headspace I was really in, to be honest with you. I was just
Okay.
composing and composing and composing. And even now, as I'm writing new music for Seizure, I write the music, I bring it to the guys, and we all arrange it together, and they write their instrumental parts.
Sure.
But as I'm writing, the music rough parts or whatever for the next Seizure stuff, even now the process is different than Forbidden Tales. Not to say that it's less special, but it's just got a different feeling.
Well, what's
And
that old saying about never being able to stand in the same stream twice?
yeah, I think that's true, and that applies to a lot of things in life.
Sure.
Um, I'll tell you something interesting as well about my songwriting process. I tend to, okay, this is going to sound really weird. I tend
Try me.
to write based on smell. If I smell something
Smell.
that's interesting, yeah, I light scented candles and I let the smells kind of take me places. This all sounds very pretentious, and I'm
I
sorry, but
cannot ever say that I've heard anyone say that before.
well,
Pretty
Forbidden Tales,
confidently.
the smell of Forbidden Tales is, I would say, like pumpkin, clove, things like that. And then
Say
for the
pumpkin
next
as
thing
you've
that I'm,
got like two Halloween references in your shot.
yeah, there, yes, this is a band that I do quite enjoy. Um, well, I started writing Forbidden Tales. I started in the autumn of 2020, I think. So when we were mixing the first
Best
album, I
year
started.
ever.
What's that?
It's a 2020, the best year ever.
The best year ever. It was incredible. Yes. But I had a lot of, I had scented candles that were autumnal. I guess that's the right word to use. And yeah, that was the smell that I went off of. And uh, now I'm just going off of, I'm experimenting with, you know, tree smells and ocean smells. So we'll see where that takes me.
So that that makes me have to ask. So you guys have been on tour before, right?
We just did our first tour, yes.
So did you get any song ideas or inspiration from the smell of man funk in the van?
No, and I'll tell you why. Well, for two reasons. One, I think human beings in general become accustomed to things very quickly. We're very adaptable animals. So we don't really go into the van and go, oh, it smells vile in here. It's more like, oh,
Bring a
in the
chick
van
in
again.
there and you'll get a very,
Yeah,
very different yeah.
true. But also, we all made a conscious effort to keep our personal hygiene um, at a good level. I brought extra sticks of deodorant just in case anybody, if there was any excuse for why nobody was wearing deodorant, I had one for you. So you better wear your deodorant. And we all, you know, we all tried our best to do that, and I think we accomplished that. There weren't any horrific smells from the tour, but that's a great question. But that being said, if you entered the van being unaccustomed to the smell, I'm sure you would gain a lot of inspiration.
I mean, I'm accustomed to that. Maybe not that specific smell, but I'm definitely anyways. I
Or is
really
that like crack?
did you ever God, I think it was Dave Vincent from Morbid Angel who said that when he would go on tour, like, the like shitty van tours in the early days, he would basically buy a pack of socks and underwear and just replace them every day and throw the previous days away.
Goodness
That makes
gracious.
a lot of that. That's very admirable thinking on his part, in my opinion.
Quite pricey though, I would imagine, especially if you're a broke band touring. You got to go to, if he's in America, Kohl's or whatever, and get new socks every day. But
Man, that's what I love about touring in Europe is that all the gas stations have showers in them for free. So like
oh,
every day you can just wake up and take a shower. It's fucking great.
how progressive! I like that.
Indeed, indeed. So what have your favorite albums of 2022 been?
Let me go on my Spotify and make sure that I'm saying albums that came out in 2022, not 2021.
Well,
Give me
yeah,
one moment.
the past 3 years have been just a meaningless blob of time.
Uh, so, do you want the albums I've been listening to or the albums that came out this year? Maybe
Whatever. I mean, like
I'll
obviously,
start with the ones that came out this year, and
yeah.
then and if there's anything else I want to add. There's an album by a band called Tyrannus called Unslayable.
Ooh,
They
unstable.
describe themselves as like Lovecraftian anti-fascist black metal. They're very
Ooh.
interesting,
Where
and they have
where
a
are they
really
from?
great sound. Uh, Scotland.
Scotland. Wow.
Yeah, really cool guys. Callum, he's in the band. Very nice guy. Super funny. Just very enjoyable to talk to, and they're just super talented. And their sound is just so. It's just cool. You just got to check them out. They're very conceptual, which I like in music. I like things that are conceptual. I like aesthetics, things of that nature. So they kind of are like a puzzle piece that slides into uh, my taste for music quite well. And their album Unslayable came out in 2022, and that
So
was
what is the name again?
Tyrannus. I'll spell it for you because I think you'll like him actually.
Yeah.
You personally. Tyrannus.
Okay. So like Darth Tyrannus from Star Wars.
Yes, like Target Tyrannus from Star Wars. Um, that's great. Blind Guardian's latest album that came out in 2022, right?
What did you think of that one?
My goodness. I Okay, so I'll give you a a brief but hopefully detailed synopsis. If that's the right word to use. Uh, because I'm gonna just lay out my thoughts. I don't know what exactly would be the best way to describe, but
Sure.
um, they released all the singles, and I thought every single one was very good. I thought Blood of the Elves was the weakest one, but it was still good. It reminded me of something like Hall of the King, I'll Follow the Blind.
Yeah.
I thought Deliver Us from Evil. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought Deliver Us from Evil was a fantastic song,
That is
and
definitely
I was
my
so
favorite.
excited. Yeah, I was so excited that that they were going back to the speed metal sound. I thought Violent Shadows was great. Here was my problem with the album. They released all of the best songs as singles. So when the album came out, the only new songs to listen to were, I don't want to say the filler songs because they were good songs, but just the songs that weren't wow. Like they
Right.
kind of I feel like, and not the band themselves, it could have been the record label, which I understand it's a great business move what they did. So no critiquing there. Just personally, after the album came out, I found myself going back to uh,
Just
the
singles.
same singles. Yeah. But I did think there was one song that I didn't like when I first heard it, and then it grew on me, and that was Destiny. I was
Mhm.
a little disappointed because I thought it was missing this epic chorus. But after listening to it, I it's that song grew on me, and I realized, oh, okay, that's not that's not what this song is meant to be. And the whole album in general was kind of a return to their speed metal sound, but almost it was a careful return. It wasn't a safe return, it was just a careful return. They had their symphonic elements still on there. It was less Nightfall and Middle Earth and more Tales from the Twilight. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I think I still need to spend some time with it. I mean, like in general, Blind Guardian is a band that has a really high learning curve. And sort of all their material requires you to spend a lot of time with it, and I don't think
Yeah.
I've put the time in. Um,
It's all very different music too. Each album is
yeah.
very different.
I feel like I actually liked Three by Demons and Wizards a little better than the new
Okay,
Blind Guardian.
that album has some really strong riffs on there.
Yeah, and
That's a great album also. My only complaint with that album, and this is where I think Blind Guardian really shines. I'm very interested in form, musical form, and I think and like arrangements. I think the arrangements on the Blind Guardian album were a lot stronger,
okay.
but that Demons and Wizards album had some really strong individual moments. There was the song New Dawn, which just
Yep.
is so epic. But the only thing that I subjectively didn't like, not saying objectively whether it's good or bad, the only thing I subjectively didn't like was that I thought the songs ended too soon, and I thought some of the parts uh, could have been repeated a little bit. Not that I could have done it any better, just
Right.
personally, there were some parts where I thought, oh, that I wish I could heard that one more time before the song ended.
I
But
think
Blind
that's kind
Guardian,
of a
never. They excel. They excel with these things.
I feel like that's kind of a like a characteristic of Schaefer's writing style,
It
especially in
is.
recent years. I feel like he tended to get a little bit lazy on structure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but that yeah
Yeah.
that had some of Hansi's best performances in a decade. I feel like.
Oh yeah. And Hansi's the melodies he wrote for that album, Hansi, were so good. I mean,
Oh my
oh my
God, yes,
gosh.
absolutely.
I I remember let me just bring up the album real quick. No, hang on. There was a song on there. Oh, dude, what was the song that was just incredible? Final Warning. That was just
Which
that
I
was a good one too.
remember, which I don't remember that one. I do
It was
remember
right
the name
after
of it.
Wolves of Winter.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
It was
Um,
also this kind of ethereal song, and I thought that was cool. I thought Hansi brought a really ethereal sound to the whole album. But then there were some songs that I didn't like, to be honest. I didn't like Midas Disease.
well, is
I
that the Jesus and Money song?
Yeah, there were
Yeah,
some lyrics in
I
there
was
where I was
not
like,
feeling that one
okay.
either.
And
Hold on.
there and it felt very AC/DC, which I get what they were going for, and I absolutely respect them. Um, but for me personally, I just didn't it didn't click with me as much as New
Yeah,
Dawn or
I
Final
remember
Warning,
when they
which is what
released
I
that
like.
song as a single, I was just like, oh no, oh no,
But they
this is
surprised us with a good
terrible.
album. So
Yeah, it was like they released they
thank
almost
God,
did
no
the
pun
opposite
intended.
of what you accused Blind Guardian of doing, which is they released their very shittiest song as a single.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say it's shitty. It's just it wasn't clicking for me. You know,
Yeah,
Midas
yeah,
Disease. Because every artist will do something with their songs that they feel strongly about, and some people will like it, some won't. For
of
every
course.
Midas Disease in Demons and Wizards sorry, for every Midas Disease in Demons and Wizards is catalog, there is a Dark Side of Her Majesty or a
Yeah.
Final Warning that's just really cool.
And my personal favorite, Children of Cain, which goddamn fucking
It's
Hansi
a long
was
one.
like is devastating on that song.
Yeah, I'll tell you though, the first Demons and Wizards album, without getting too much into a tangent, but the first one I ever heard was Touched by the Crimson King.
Oh no.
You don't
That's
like that one?
it's not I don't dislike it. I'd rather listen to it than mumble rap. Um,
Well,
but
that's
I will say it's not my favorite thing from either Ice Earth or Blind Guardian or Demons and Wizards.
I will say this. I mean, maybe I'm just a little nostalgic. There is one song on Touched by the Crimson King that makes me very uncomfortable, not because I think it's bad, but just because I don't know how to feel when I listen to it. And that's the song about the baby with Down syndrome that the dad doesn't want.
I don't know that song.
I think it's called Down Where I Am, and the song is about like a baby is born with Down syndrome and the dad doesn't want it. And it's supposed to be like
Oh
a
boy,
sad song. And it is a sad song.
I'm
Um,
sure it is.
but it's just a it's it's an interesting concept, but I appreciate interesting
Sure.
concepts. One of the coolest songs though by Demons and Wizards. Very repetitive, but the riff is fantastic as Dorian. That's an incredible song.
I don't know. I'm so unfamiliar with this album. I've tried and I just like can't really get into it.
Do you like the first album?
Oh yeah, I love the first album.
What's your favorite song in the first album?
I really like Gallows Pull, I think is
Oh,
or
okay.
wait. Um the one Am I evil? Am I good? The universe, Gallows Pull. Yeah, yeah, it's Gallows Pull.
You know what? I that has to be your favorite song because I could tell that has to have been an influence on your melodies. These types of things, which is
I mean,
cool.
not that song specifically, but
Sure, but that
like
kind of melodic
God,
style.
I fucking like every second of Blind Guardian's catalog is like etched into my DNA. Like I listen to them so much that uh, almost sad amounts of time listening to them.
I completely understand. I mean, for I think 2 or 3 years in a row, they were my top listened to band on Spotify. Actually, I'll show you something also from my birth year,
Hey, mirror,
1999.
mirror.
There we
All
go.
right,
That is, I
that's
found that
great.
on online from 1999. And I thought, oh, oops, I thought I have to get this. I love the song "Blood on My Hands." That's
Oh yeah,
fantastic
oh yeah.
about Wagner's Ring Cycle. It's interesting.
Did you see them live when they played?
No, and I'm so sad because John Schaefer had to, pardon my French, fuck it all up before I could see them live, which is
Yep,
so unfortunate.
not gonna
But
happen now.
it's not going to happen again. But you know what? I've never seen Chopin live. I've never seen Beethoven live. So there are certain things that you can't see live, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. So what did you think of the new Halloween? I guess it's not all that new at this point, but like whatever, new enough. You don't
Um,
apparently.
man, that was another album that had to grow on me. It was a lot like the Blind Guardian album,
Okay,
in the sense where I heard the singles and I loved them, and then it just took me a little bit more time to appreciate the whole
sure. Yeah,
album.
I can see that.
But there were some songs on it. But overall, I thought it was a really incredible album. And same with the Blind Guardian and Demons and Wizards albums. But speaking for Halloween, I mean, Fear of the Fallen, I thought was incredible.
Yeah, that's a great
I
song.
didn't I didn't like Best Time at first, but then I heard it a couple of times and I was like, okay, this song is starting to grow on me. And then I hear it more
Yeah.
and more and more, and then it really grew on me. Uh, Skyfall was cool. That was
Oh my
cool.
God.
That song felt like really old school Halloween, so I appreciated that.
That's like one of my favorite songs ever, probably. Like when I first heard that, like I almost started crying. Like just hearing Kiski like that, like at the top of his form, and just, I don't know, it feels like your parents getting back together after a really long, bitter divorce. Like I just
Wow.
love everyone in Halloween so much. Like I love Kai, I love Michael Kiske, I love, the guys who are the core band. And it's just like, I don't know, Halloween feels more like a super group at this point than like a band. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I want to see them live, and I know they're coming to LA. So
Yes, they are. Yes. I missed them the last time, but not gonna miss them this time.
yeah. Well, those are pretty much the newer things I've been listening to.
Okay.
In regards to everything else, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of classical music and Sabaton. I've been listening to a lot of them lately.
Of course.
So
Gotta listen to Sabaton.
gotta listen to
They
Sabaton. Uh,
I'm
their album, The Great War, is their best for sure. And I've listened to a lot of Sabaton, and I could say The Great War is the best album.
I'm
Their
I'm
newest
personally
album,
fond of
Unbroken One, is good too.
Heroes.
Heroes, you said?
Heroes is my personal favorite. I'm obviously very ingratiated to them at the moment. Um, because they made me the winner of their competition the day
Yeah.
before we released our EP and just brought fuck tons of traffic to it.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, hang on. Let me.
so
That is fantastic. Oh yeah, look at that. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
so I guess speaking of web traffic, so one of something that I noticed about your band, before you released this album, you told me my goal is to get 10,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. And at the time, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I mean, I'd like a solid gold toilet seat too, but it's not going to fucking happen. Uh, and you did it.
Oh,
So how did you do that? How,
uh,
I mean, other
God's
than
will.
other than by like writing the best album you're capable of and putting it out and everything.
Thank you. Um,
Unless you don't want to give away your secrets, in which case,
no, no, no,
don't
no.
answer.
I'll say. I mean, well, our single Potion Seller did really well. Thank God for that. And that drove a lot of traffic to the album. Um, and what ended up happening was that by the grace of God, uh, I think Potion Seller got put on a Spotify algorithmic playlist.
Oh, nice.
And then the album came out, and I submitted to Spotify a couple more songs, and they graciously put those on the playlist. And after a couple of weeks, it got to 10,000, and that
Great.
was pretty cool. And then
So
it went
basically just
down.
took the
We
um
reached
the
our goal.
playlist route.
Sort of. I mean, I learned some. I learned an. I went on the Facebook ads, and I learned that, and I tried that out, and that worked okay.
Mhm.
But that's a learning curve. The second time I did it worked much better. but but for the single post seller, it worked okay. It was really a lot of it was our fans, the Wizards. They
Okay.
streamed Potion Seller,
Wizard.
that single, so much that that. So basically, the way Spotify works, if I could explain it in my uh, non-educated, I'm sure there's a word for that way. I'm not any expert on these things, but
Sure.
if a song gets enough traction within the first week or so that it's released, Spotify will put it on a playlist.
Oh,
And the Wizards streamed Potion Seller a lot, and it got put on the playlist. And that was that. But yeah, that was a really exciting moment. That was really cool. And throughout the whole thing, we knew it was going to go down after because you reach a ton of people,
Of
and then some
course.
people stay. And we were really happy with just the whole experience, and really gracious to the Wizards for streaming Potion Seller a lot. So to answer your question, mostly the single. The single really was what drove the album, and it was because of the single that more people discovered the album, and that our monthly listeners went from like 7 or 8 thousand to 10,000, because the single peaked about 7 or 8 thousand, and then we got an extra couple thousand from.
So so I guess like I'll close this off by saying that to me that kind of emphasizes the importance of songwriting, which is kind of a lost art and in metal, and has in my opinion has been for a while. Do you follow Gear Gods at all?
Yes. They have the
Hold on.
YouTube channel.
Okay, meeting will end in 10 minutes. So yeah.
No worries.
So are you familiar with so yeah, you do. So you cannot speak today.
It's all good. I've been struggling
you have
too.
any opinions on uh sort of Trey Xavier's sort of the approach that he's really been pushing, lately, his whole like riffs are not songs idea, like
You'd have to enlighten me a little bit more about that.
Okay. I was afraid you'd say that. I was kind of hoping you'd already be familiar. Basically,
I know his channel, I've seen his videos, but that's particular
okay.
concept.
You should really check out his like his song review segments. He does like a Twitch where people submit their songs and he like tears them apart or praises them or whatever. And he's really big on like the idea that you shouldn't be writing riff salad. So you don't need like an intro riff to the intro riff to the intro riff. You don't you don't need 20 riffs per song. You just need a really solid idea of what you want, and you just need to communicate it as simply as and effectively as possible.
Okay.
Do you have? I mean, I don't think you probably need to watch more of his videos to really like.
Well, I think I understand
it.
what you're saying. That form is important, and that less is more at the end of the day, which is absolutely true. I mean, metal has kind of. I'm going to say something very controversial. Metal has been plagued with the idea that more is more, which is just not true. The great chef from England, Marco Pierre White, said that in regards to cooking, and this works for any art. He said the more you add, the more you take away, which is 100% true. Less is more. Chopin said simplicity is the reward for everything, or something along those lines. That's not verbatim, but it's absolutely true. I think at the end of the day, it's like this: write whatever you want, write what you feel is good, and that's going to be your art. And then market your art, whatever it is, in the best way possible. If you're going to write singles, just like if you were going to write a sonata, you need to follow the form that is part of that, or that is that type of piece of music requires. You can experiment with it. There are composers that would write in sonata form, which is a classical form, and experiment with it, and that's fine. There are singles that have the pop form, really, which is verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. If you're in metal, replace bridge with guitar solo, and you can experiment with that, and that's absolutely fine. but you wouldn't write, like a rondo, and then pass it off as a sonata, or at least the first piece in your sonata. Just as you wouldn't write a riff salad and pass it off as a single. You can write a riff salad if you want and put it on your album, if that's what you feel, and do it. But if you're going to write singles, then you should adhere to that form in the way which is most appropriate for what you are trying to do. So I know that's kind of a vague answer, but form is important. I mean, that's what separates classical music from jazz. That's what separates jazz from pop. I mean, when people say metal is so close to classical music, in some ways, yes, but really no, because what makes classical music is the form.
Is the form, yes.
That's what makes classical. You have sonata form, which is, you could have an intro, but simply put A, B, and then you have, your development, I think is what it's called, based on these themes. And then you recapitulate A, and then or the recapitulation is A, and then B in the key of A. So it has its form. That's a very rough and probably in some ways wrong definition, but that's the form. And it's always been so important to anything in music. And you have pop form, And I'm sorry to say this, but metal music generally follows pop form.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
If you listen
it's
to
a derivation
go
of
ahead.
rock, and rock, comes from blues, and it's all, it is all separate from classical in terms of form, and
Yes.
it's not. I wouldn't say that it's from the same branch, even though you can be. Obviously, we're talking about how you can be influenced by it, but
Melodic
it really
ideas
is
can come from
separate.
it.
Huh?
Melodic ideas can come from it.
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah, absolutely.
But the actual music itself, yes, it's not classical, a lot of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, that's form is important. I think Trey's his name, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Trey makes some very good points there, and it's good that he's doing that because it
yeah.
seems like he's giving a lot of help, whether he knows it or not. He's helping a lot of people by doing that, which is an
There's a lot
admirable
of
thing.
luckily there's a lot of people who are really emphasizing this, because I think it really needed to be said. Like there's this guy Matt Bacon on Instagram talks about this kind of thing a lot. Glenn Fricker from Spectre Sound. Um, yeah. I'm really glad this is becoming a more sort of common understanding, and that's actually one of the one of my favorite things about your guys' new album. The minute I looked at it on Spotify, I saw that it was under 40 minutes, and most songs were about in the 3 to 4 minute range, and I was like, yes, this is that's the way to do it, in my opinion, anyway. Obviously,
Our producer Adair helped us out a lot with that. He
great.
was there to tell me, this riff goes on a little bit too long. How do you feel about cutting it down a little bit?
That is
And
great. That's great.
and that's the job. Yeah, and that's the job of a producer. A producer doesn't write the music for you, but he or she is there to kind of guide you and say, how do you feel about cutting this down just a little bit? How do you feel if, you have 3 different riffs for your bridge section? How do you feel about taking out the weakest one, shortening the song a little bit, making it a little bit more streamlined, and save that riff for a different song or save it for the next album? Perfect.
Anyways, I think Zoom is about to cut us off in about
Okay.
3 minutes. So is there anything you want to say that will take 3 minutes to say?
I would like to say thank you to all of the wizards that have been supporting us. And I'd like to say thank you to you, Devin, for having me on this interview. I believe this has been incredibly fruitful, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you as a person.
Cool. You too.
And thank you. And just to, I think ANUBIS and SEIZURE are 2 bands that kind of go hand in hand. We have our own sounds, but we're kind of like cousins. You know what I mean?
I agree.
In the sense where we were born from the same blood.
Yes.
And I think this is very fruitful, and I'm excited to see a rise in more melodic music again, whether that be, we are the new guard that's coming up right now, and it's more melodic than what came before. And I think it's time that we start embracing melodicism.
I agree. All right, dude. Great talking to you. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Devin. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
It's the same. You don't